Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where crazy Karens confuse regular Joe Schmo customers as employees. And in today's episode, you'll hear how OP was almost kidnapped by a crazy couple for not being an employee. It's such a ridiculous story. Guys, I hope you enjoy the other stories as well, and do hit that subscribe button for future tales. Let's dive in, guys. Okay, so about 2 days ago, my friend and I were chilling in Hooters. She's friends with one of the servers, so we usually go there to hang out and have a beer. The wings are good too. Now, I'm sure most of you know what the uniform looks like. It's a tank top and booty shorts, but the tank top is white and it says Hooters on it. So we sit down, order the beer and food, and just hang out. It was a hot summer day, so yeah, it's hot. And I was wearing, drumroll please, a white tank top with a skull on it, because, you know, #badass. It's one of my favorite shirts, and I normally wear it under a flannel jacket. The restaurant gets kinda hot, so I had taken my jacket off. Halfway through the meal, I decided I needed to use the restroom. And on my way back, I heard a very loud, "Excuse me." So I look around for a second and realize that she's talking to me. And of course, the woman's a Karen. I say, "Yes, ma'am," 'cause that's how I was raised. At this, the Karen says, "Hey, I've been waiting so long. Are all of you just standing around doing nothing? Can I get a refill here?" At this, I say to her, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't work here." She says, "What the heck do you mean you don't work here?" I told her literally what I just said. And she says, "Why are you lying to me?" Now, I'm clearly baffled that she thinks I work here, and then she says, "Don't you lie. Clearly you do. Look at your boobs." Upon hearing this, I was so embarrassed at this point that I can feel my face turning bright red. It pissed me off, so I instantly bark, "Excuse me?" Karen says, "You heard me. Why would you come in here dressed like that when you're not an employee? Now get me a refill." She then turns to her husband and said, "I'm sorry, hun, but this is the last time I'm letting you choose where we eat. We're never coming back here. It's terrible service." I told her, "Lady, I don't work here, but if you talk to waitresses the same way you're talking to me, then you should get out and go home." Hearing that, Karen's in shock. She demands to speak to my manager at this point. I tell her I don't work here. I'm not even wearing the uniform. Now this is where the Karen goes psycho. She screams, "Then take off that damn tank top then." She then goes to grab at my shirt, trying to pull it down, and I flat out slap her. The manager finally notices and tells our waitress to call the cops. He then comes over and deals with the situation. Just as she lunges at me, he grabs her. And I should mention that the manager was a huge man. Now, I honestly don't remember what was said next because I blacked out with adrenaline and rage, but he tells me that there was more screaming and what looked like to be the beginning of a bar fight. I ended up pressing charges for assault. And I know it might not happen, but fingers crossed that woman goes to jail. Guys, crazy people never cease to amaze me. Yeah, Karen, let's just assume everybody with breasts wearing tank tops works at Hooters, and then try to rip off their shirt when they don't work at Hooters. In public. I also love how she says to her husband, "I'm sorry, hun, but it's the last time I'm letting you choose where we eat." Like that man knew exactly what he was doing. So a little bit of background. I've worked in security for over 6 years now, and the first few mostly as a bouncer, but later on, I worked as a celebrity/socialite CPO, which is a close protection officer, otherwise known as a bodyguard. 2 years prior to this incident, I was working the doors at a club that was a hotspot for underage drinkers, and I obviously bounced a lot of them in my time. It's also not the biggest venue, and it's always jam-packed. So on to 2017-2018 New Year's Eve. I was working in a team as a close protection officer for some rich 18-year-old who liked to big things up on New Year's Eve. The guy's bill was over $100,000 US that night. My guys got 2 of the 5 VIP areas which surrounded the dance floor. So the title character in the story, who we'll call Dickhead, he's in a different party, and the VIP area was next to that party. One of our jobs is to make sure my guy's area and his drinks are only taken by his partygoers. So throughout the night, Dickhead and his merry friends were stepping over into that area. They were trying to take drinks, talking trash, and generally just being, "I just turned drinking age, idiots." Now I'm not sure what cracked, but Dickhead was in my guy's face, so I grabbed him and mildly removed him. He wasn't having that, and he starts shoving my partygoers around, making a fuss. There was a scuffle, shouting, usual club drama, and the bouncers came in to do their parts and things are back to a calm state. The guy then decides to confront us and he was mad that I removed him. The conversation basically went like this. Now keep in mind, this is a nightclub with the music turned up to 11. The guy approaches me and says, "Hey, what's your name?" At this I asked, "What?" "What's your effing name?" I told him it doesn't matter. I then tell him to get out of my face, and this is when he screams, "You are nothing. You can't be anything more than a bouncer. I could own you and your whole family. You're trash." You get the idea. Insults. I then tell him to F off, as I don't work here or for him. I then try pushing him a bit to move him away, but he moves closer to me shouting, "I know you. I know you've worked here for years. Don't you remember who I am? Don't you know who I am?" I continue pushing him away from my face, and I said, "Go on then. Who are you?" The guy continues with more insults, followed by poking my chest with every word. And my team are getting ready to back me up, and the guy I'm paid to guard in his party are now looking my way. I kept trying to talk him out, but he wasn't listening and just yelling and swearing, until I had enough. I then grabbed his wrist, pulled down on his shoulder, and twisted and bent his elbow behind his back and shouted as loud as I could into his ear that he's done and to leave us alone. At this, the guy winces in pain, and I'll admit, I might have been a bit of a doorknob and said something cringy like, "I'll break you." After I let go of him, he gave me one more "You are F." And then he went over to the bouncers. They came over and looked at me a bit confused, and I think they said something like, "This guy doesn't work here." He said more, but I couldn't hear what. The Nabo then goes back to his mates, and I didn't see him for the rest of the night. They did keep trying to take my group's drinks though, but nothing to write home about. And I'm not even sure if this is worth writing about, but it felt nice anyway. Hey, what can I say, guys? Alcohol really gives you that liquid courage. Combine that with raging testosterone of an 18, 19-year-old, and you've got a recipe for the most cocky, invincible young adult ever. Trust me, I know that, and I can relate. Anyways, guys, reading the story, let me tell you a little story about the time this one random stranger saved me from getting beat up in a club. It's a genuine fluff tale. Okay, so you guys know how it is when young kids go party, right? Everybody's drunk, everyone's having a good time, and some people get overly drunk, yada yada yada. So on this night, I was freaking wasted. So I had to go to the bathroom. I was so many drinks in, and literally I was stumbling my way trying to find a way to empty my bladder. I didn't even know where the bathroom was. So yeah, typical Saturday night, the club was packed. So along the way, I of course was trying to keep upright. I was like waddling around and I was doing pretty well until this one random idiot shoved his friend into me. And I guess I bumped into this guy who had his back turned and he was talking to his group of buddies or something. I'm pretty sure I caused him to spill his drink all over himself. Anyways, so the guy turns around, gets in my face, and he is drunk as a mother effer. I can smell the whiskey on his breath. Now, of course, the club is super loud, and I'm trying to explain and apologize, saying that I'll buy him a drink, etc, etc, but the guy just gets in my face, okay? Now, I'm not a super tall dude by any means, and this guy was freaking massive. He was literally a foot taller than me. I remember looking up at his face. He's then screaming at my face that he's gonna kick my ass, and then he grabs me, he grabs my shirt, and then out of nowhere, a random stranger, a guy that I've never ever seen before in my life, he comes out of nowhere and just punches the guy in the face and knocks him out. Now listen guys, I'm not a fighter by any means, okay? I wouldn't have stood a chance against this guy. So the guy who punched him then screams at him, "Don't you ever touch my friend again." Now again, I don't know this guy, I've never seen him, I was drunk, you know, my savior was a total stranger to me. The guy then looks at me and was like, "Thanks man, I was looking for a reason to punch this idiot all night. He's been a dickhead to everybody around him. And if I didn't punch him now, it would have been later." So yeah, the bouncers quickly came to address the situation, and I'm pretty sure they banned those dudes. And then I went pee. But crazy, crazy story, right? And I totally forgot about that incident until I read this story. And listen, before you guys come in and say, "Oh, Fluff condones violence on this channel," I don't commend the guy for cheap-shotting that dude, okay? I'm just saying, hey, it was either me or him, and in my humble opinion, I am glad it was him and not me. You know what? I might do an episode where I just talk about all the crazy nights I've had in bars and clubs because, you know, Fluff's a partier, okay? This voice is a party voice. Okay, so since that was a crazy story, this next story is the one you guys are here for, and it's wild. Now this story happened a long time ago, but my aunt recently brought it up again, so I thought I'd share. This was a horrifying experience, but now that I look back, I laugh because what else can you do? I was 14 at the time, and I was visiting my aunt and uncle over the summer. My aunt works at a pretty big drugstore a few blocks away. And one day I had to get some feminine products, so I decided I would bring her some lunch and eat with my aunt on her lunch break. Two birds. So I went straight to the feminine products, and in my haste, I accidentally knocked some items down. So I squatted down to pick them up. I was on the floor for maybe a minute when I was forcefully pulled up to a standing position. At this, I turned and I was met with a barbecue-stained t-shirt. I realized the guy wearing it was a very angry man, and he was still holding onto my arm. He then starts angrily ranting how it's so hard to find employees in the store to help him. Now the guy was clearly drunk. I could smell booze on his breath. So I gruffly said, "I don't work here, go find someone else," and pulled my arm from his grip. And suddenly the guy's furious. He then goes into a rage, slurring his swears at this point, and proceeds to grab my arm. The guy then pulls me to the front saying he's gonna get me fired for being such a terrible, rude bitch to him, and today's the day I learned my lesson. Now guys, I was literally being dragged against my will, so I start screaming for help. People finally start coming around the corner as we get to the cash register, and there's a huge crowd around us. The cashiers are screaming at him to let go of my wrist, and a few men are stepping in to confront the situation. I was horrified at this point. Everybody's screaming at him to let me go, and a few people are screaming to get police. Now, the guy doesn't let me go, but he realizes that he's gonna be in trouble, and you'll never believe what happened next. I believe, in an effort to cover his ass, this drunk random man starts saying that I'm his daughter, and he caught me stealing from the store. At this point, a woman comes up to him, I'm assuming his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, and he says to the woman, "I caught Emily trying to steal again. Can you believe this?" The guy fakes my name. His wife looks a little shocked, but she quickly composes herself, and then she marches right up to me and starts to scold me saying, "I didn't raise my daughter to steal. Get to the car." Now, this was a terrifying moment for me. I start screaming that I'm not their daughter, and they turn, still pulling me along to leave. At this point, my aunt comes from the back room and she's utterly shocked. She starts screaming at them to let go of me, and they start yelling that they're disciplining their daughter. My aunt screams back that I'm her niece and they're gonna go to jail. So hearing that, the guy quickly lets go of me and he literally runs for the exit when security stopped him. The guard manages to grab the man and tosses him to the ground as he was really drunk, while his wife hauls ass out of the store. They prevented him from leaving the store until the cops arrived. The police then show up, talk to me for a good while, and my aunt and the bystanders stayed around to talk to the cops. So in the end, I'm pretty sure the man got charged, and they put him into the back of the police cruiser and took him away. I stayed in the back room as I was freaking out. I'm not sure what they were charged with, but my aunt told me it was most likely assault, attempted kidnapping, and theft, as the woman basically took whatever she was holding and just ran. I hope the guy got jail time and they caught his wife too. I never heard about them again. Man, that is a terrifying situation to be in. I'm so shocked that the couple even lied and told everybody that OP was their daughter and was only disciplining her for stealing. I couldn't imagine what would have happened if they got away with dragging OP to their car. If they even had a car. OP was literally in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I'm so glad she came out of it unharmed. I'm so glad the drunk idiot was subdued until the cops came and was charged. So yeah, drunk people can be really crazy. About 20 minutes ago, I'm in Sephora. I had gotten an email with a discount code, so I figured I'd treat myself to some new makeup for being an adult and getting my vaccine, as well as replacing the rotors on my car. So I'm browsing the eyeshadow, looking for a palette that I want, but don't already have. I'm wearing a tie-dye tank top, a tie-dye bandana in my hair, and a pair of paint-stained jeans from when I helped my dad paint a fence a few days ago. Now, unless there's some sort of casual Wednesday that I'm unaware of, I certainly don't look like an employee. So due to the panorama, you can't test the makeup like normal. This isn't a problem for me. I know what brands I like and work well for me. But apparently some lady had a huge problem with this because the next thing I know, there's a tap on my shoulder. So I turn around. I'm face to face with what I can best describe as Mimi from The Drew Carey Show 2.0. Now her face had so much makeup caked onto it that I could see where she applied different shades of concealers very clearly, almost like lines on her face. Her eyes were done up more than a fashion couture model during Fashion Week, but was smeared like she had just got done a 4-hour crying session. She then says loudly, "I want to try that one," as she pointed to a colorful palette. I say to her, "I bet you do," and she says, "What's that supposed to mean?" I reply with a shrug, and she says, "How dare you insult me? I'll have your job." Now she kind of stomped as she said this, like an angry rhinoceros. I told her, good luck with that, but if that's how you treat employees, I'm glad you got me instead. They don't get paid enough to put up with your BS. Now, for whatever reason, she's still not convinced that I don't work here. and she stomps off to find a manager, still screeching about disrespect and how she's never blah blah blah. I figure the manager will take it and go back to looking at the pallets. Now I'm not so lucky. About a minute later, she comes huffing back with a manager in tow, looking like a poor pup who had just been beat. And she screams, "That one! That's the one who insulted me, and I demand you do something about it, right now." Stomping her feet on the last two syllables. Now at this, the manager looks at me, looks at Mimi, shakes her head and says, "Ma'am, she clearly doesn't work here. She's a customer just like you. I'm not sure what you want me to do, and I'm so sorry she upset you, but unless she put her hands on you or threatened you, there's not much I can do." Realization slowly washes over the woman, and her face went from being red like a cherry from being angry, to being pink like bubblegum from being embarrassed. She then stutters out half an apology, saying, I am so... and then said to the manager, "Well, I still want to try that pallet." At this point, my mind was made up. There was only one of those pallets left on the floor, and while they might have had more in the back, she was gonna have to wait for it. Without a word, I grab the pallet and start walking towards the line. Upon seeing this, Mimi nearly starts crying at this point, saying, "Did you see that? Can she do that? Can she? I wanted that pallet." The manager simply responded, "Ma'am, you asked to sample the pallet, and unfortunately right now, due to what's going on, I can't let you do that. As I've already stated, she's a customer, and if she wants to buy that pallet, she's absolutely allowed. If you're going to keep causing a scene, I'm going to need to ask you to leave." Mimi then turns on her heels and went to sulk in the corner of the store. I checked out, and I've been sitting in my car waiting for her to leave the store so I can go back in and return this hideous pallet. Screw her. Guys, I love how this story has a little bit of petty revenge added to it. So OP does have the update, and the update goes, she finally left the store. No bag in hand. I waited for her to exit the parking lot to ensure that she didn't see me going back in. When I walked back in the door, the employee watching the door starts cracking up. I asked what happened with Mimi 2.0. Apparently she was so irate that I took the last one that she asked to buy the sample, and they couldn't let her do that. She then insisted that an employee go check the back and not come out until they've looked everywhere for another pallet. So they sent an employee in the back, aka smoke break, to look for nearly 20 minutes. I imagine the employee had multiple smokes after dealing with this lady, and I don't blame her. The employee came back and told her that they looked everywhere, but they don't have any more. At this point, Mimi picks up the pallet closest to her and she throws it on the ground in protest. The manager then told her that she'd be paying for it and to leave the premise immediately, and if she didn't, they'd be calling the cops. Mimi then forked over the money and she hustled out the store. At this point, I said, "Man, in that case, I'm glad I waited to see her leave the parking lot before I came to return this." And the employee doubled over with laughter. She thought I was just checking up on the situation, and she had no idea that I actually didn't want the pallet. Now, generally, I'm one of the nicest people you're ever gonna meet, but disrespecting an employee who's just trying to do their job is one surefire way to piss me off. And I have no problem standing up for the person who most likely can't, or chance losing their job. Thank you to all of the essential workers. Guys, that update was truly the cherry on top of this wonderful story. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that like button. If you missed the last episode on the channel, a super entitled Karen repeatedly trespasses to steal OP's expensive flowers, and she gets taught a lesson. Check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.